Welcome to Life, Lafter Divorce, episode 8. I am your host, Leanne Linsky.
And I'm the boyfriend.
And we are here for the 8th week in a row.
Yes, I'm still here, ladies and gentlemen.
This is a record.
So, Leanne, what are we discussing today?
Today, boyfriend, we are going to talk about the importance of a support system.
Why would you need those?
Because usually you don't until something bad happens. And then you're like, oh my gosh, who's going to help me get through this?
That's exactly right, though. It's when bad things happen.
Exactly. And that's when you realize you need the people around you most. And it's important to have family and friends or some sort of spirituality or ability to focus, right?
Or something to focus on.
Right. Something that you feel comfortable and safe with. And so, like, if you've ever gone through a breakup, which you have, we both have, obviously, like, who do you go to first? Who do you find more comforting, your family or close friends?
I guess when I was younger, probably friends, and then family during a certain period of my life, and then back to friends. So sort of when it went through a whole cycle.
Right. It maybe depends on the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand that. And what about the other thing that I'm always curious about is,
Well, how about you? You've been through more breakups than me.
Do you like how I avoided that whole answer?
Yeah.
I think it's both. I think it's definitely a healthy balance between family and friends. I've been through so many, so I guess I kind of have to even them out over time.
Okay.
Can't wear them all out all the time. So they're in a rotation. They're in a rotation.
So who's up next?
Well, all right. We'll just get right to the point. We have
I meant who's up next in your rotation.
Oh, that. Well, I don't know. I'll have to check my notebook. I'll have to check the list. I keep a spreadsheet. No, I don't. I don't.
So, what other things can you focus on that help you get through these types of stressful emotional situations?
Well, I think for me, learning to put the focus back on myself. So whether that is I think we kind of talked about what we do after a breakup, but in a bigger sense of that, focusing on a sense of self, I find new things to do with my time. But I think that also includes doing the inner work too, not just activities, but also physicality. I think we mentioned before, like going to the gym, but I also think that's a healthy way to get out frustration or anger or grief.
Or stress.
Yes. All of those things. So working on self in maybe a physical way, a spiritual way, emotional way, and having good family and friends around you in tough times.
So focus for health, focus for mental being, and having a good support system.
Absolutely.
So those are all key things to help getting through these rough patches of life.
Right. And if anybody out there has something that we're not thinking of, by all means, send us an email.
Or put it in your review.
Yeah, or drop a note in the review. That's right. Be sure to subscribe, review, and rate, you guys. We want to hear what you think.
It helps us get better and helps us improve these podcasts for you guys.
It sure does.
So who do we have this week?
All right. Well, this week we have a wonderful guest. She is a comedian named Ann Walker, and I think I'll leave it to her to tell her story. So without further ado... Welcome to Life, Lafter Divorce.
Hi, Leanne. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And I'm very excited to have you on today. And I guess we'll start kind of at the beginning by telling our listeners where you're from.
Born and raised in Chicago and then moved to Florida. So I claim both because I was born in Chicago, but I spent more years in Florida.
Nice. Well, I actually grew up in the Chicago area. I won't say Chicago because you'll be like, that's not Chicago. That's outside of Chicago. So were you actually in Chicago?
Yes.
Okay, nice. Very
Just
nice.
recently moved to New York too, so
You did. That's awesome. I live there as well.
love that
Big,
place.
I know, me too. Now, which do you like better, Chicago or New York?
Biased, I'm gonna say New York because I haven't been in Chicago in a really long time.
Nice. That would be my answer too. I mean, I love Chicago. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
And then you were in Florida for how long?
Oh, far too many years. Too many years for anybody who would live in Florida. It's just not real.
Right? It's not really a real place. It's like every weird story you hear in the news, it happened in Florida.
Every episode of Cops, Florida.
There you go. Right? There you go. So I guess now you have been married and divorced once, right?
Yes.
And how long were you married?
6 long years.
Wow. Wow. I always say wow anytime it's longer than mine, which is 2 years. So like, well, that's a big chunk of time. So 6 years. And where did you guys meet?
We met in Florida through his family because I knew his family before I met him.
Oh, okay. How did you know his family?
We all went to church together.
Nice. So you thought this would be a safe bet, right?
I did. I was so misguided.
And you sound so happy. You sound so happy now. Isn't it funny now when you look back and when you were going through the divorce and whatnot, would you ever have thought you'd be laughing about it?
No.
Really?
Not even. I do stand-up comedy and I still haven't even done it on stage.
Really?
Yeah.
You haven't talked about any of this?
No, I just couldn't find the funny in it, you know?
It took you a while. And now do you do it at all?
I absolutely will now, yeah.
But you still haven't.
I still haven't yet.
Ah, okay. Were you doing comedy when you were married?
No.
Is that what catapulted you into the comedy career?
Ooh, no, actually, I've been divorced since 2010. I was separated in 2009 from him, but I started comedy in 2012.
Really? What launched you into comedy? Was it something else? I mean, clearly it was something else.
Yeah. I had friends who I was in an improv group, honestly, and some friends of mine were just like, they were comedians and they said, you're so funny, you should do it. And I was like, I don't know. But one night we were just going for pizza and they're like, they have an open mic next door, you should check it out. And I was like, all right, cool, I'll go. I didn't know what an open mic was or anything. So I went in there completely green. And one of my friends, when she got off stage, she introduced me up next. And I was not expecting that.
But you now the nice thing is though that you had improv experience.
Mm-hmm.
So how long had you been doing improv?
I did improv a year before that.
Okay. And how did you get into improv?
There was a friend of mine who was one of the comedians. He had started his own group and I had went out to go see them. And I was like, well, I could do that. That looks fun, you know? And then he was holding auditions a few months later. And since I already knew, you know, him and the troupe, I said, well, yeah, I'll go and do it. But for audition, only like 3 of us showed up. So the other 3 that were there, we all just decided to be the group. That was it.
Oh my gosh. So now did you have any training or anything or you just...
I'm just silly. My whole life I've been like, the stage has always been fun for me, like musicals and dancing and singing and stuff. But I had never just like performed solo with the microphone other than singing.
So that was quite a step then.
It was.
That was. So you had some good friends and a support system. A lot of people I talked to recently, I guess that's why it's in my head, is they kind of ended up doing stand-up as a result of, you know, a tragedy of a heartbreak or something there like that.
Oh, wow. I had plenty of those. I should have done it way earlier.
You were just writing your story. You just didn't know it at the time, right? When you were going through your divorce, what was it that got you through if it wasn't something like stand-up or improv? What were you doing to cope?
I was taking care of my son.
Ah. And
Yeah.
how old was your son at the time?
Let's see. At the time of the divorce, he was 16. The man I married was not his dad, you know, which was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my son and we just rekindled our relationship. We rebonded because the marriage took a great deal out of the relationship with my son in that he didn't want my son around. He didn't want to be there for him at all, but he wanted me to take care of his 3 boys and treat them as royalty and treat my son like he didn't even exist.
Oh, wow. Ouch. That's
Yeah.
kind of rough.
That was a major thing. Yeah.
So that was during the marriage.
Yes.
Wow. And so did you recognize this right away? I mean,
Oh, not at all. When we first started, like everything was gold and silver and rainbows and like butterflies. But after the first year, it was just like hell and demons and stuff,
wow.
So, but I was just like, no, I'm married. I got to be the good wife. And he kept telling me, God doesn't like divorce. God doesn't like divorce. So I stayed as long as I could. And it was just like, nah, something's going to give. Something's got to give.
Wow. And you guys, well, you obviously have strong ties to a church because that's where you met his family, right? And so him saying that probably weighed on you a lot. How did you, what was provoking him to say those things? Obviously, maybe he knew something was wrong. And how did you react?
It was just so weird. Like, I don't know why. I sat him down and I just thought, I was like, you know what? He needs to hear this, but I want to let him know this. It's like, listen, if there's ever a time while we're together that you feel that this isn't working for you or you want to be with somebody else, just let me know. It'll hurt for a second, but I'll be okay. I'd rather know the truth and I'd rather have that to go on rather than later on find out that there was cheating involved. While we're in it right now, we can talk about it. We can work on things. And I was always willing to work on stuff. And I don't know if it was just things from his past that he never let go of, but I was just a prisoner in my own house.
So when you had those conversations, you kind of had those conversations at the beginning to keep communication open and then...
Thoroughly in between, yes.
So when you first met and you met through his family and everything and things were great, how long did you date before you got married?
We dated for like almost a year, but preface that though, before I got together with him, I hadn't been with anybody in 10 years.
That's a long time. Yeah.
And since I haven't been with anybody since that. So
Yeah.
it was devastating.
Absolutely. I can imagine. Well, and I don't think any of us enter a marriage thinking that it's going to end either.
Right.
You don't think of it that way. You think of the happily ever after and you ride off into the sunset. But
right.
But when you went through your divorce, how did you handle, did you approach it first or did he, or how did that come about?
It came about because I had gotten to the point where I was tired of being blamed for cheating, blamed for looking at people. He just gave me a look of disgust. It was like there was nothing there anymore, and I was trying to make something be that was not, and so I forgot the question. I apologize.
No, that's okay. How did you approach it saying that you wanted out or did he?
Yeah, no, I did. Well, I didn't even talk to him about it because, but like beforehand, he wanted to go to counseling. I wanted him to go to counseling. He would not go.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to go stay with my mom for a little while. And then he's like, okay, I'll go to counseling. I'll do it. Da, da, da. And when we went to the church, he wanted to go to the church. So we went to the church counselor and all this other stuff. 2 different counselors told him, if you do not straighten up, you do realize she's going to leave you,
Wow.
And he's like, well, no, we're good. But there was so much that went on that was unsalvageable. It really was, because he threatened my life. He threatened the life of my son. And that's what I was just like, I can't do this anymore. And I left him. And when I went back to Florida, I just filed for a divorce. And he was like, no, I'm not going to give you any problems about it. But he gave me problems.
Right. Well, okay. So did you guys meet in Florida or in Chicago?
We met in Florida.
Okay. So you met in Florida. So you dated there, you married there, right? And he had his 3 kids and you had your son.
Yeah. And then he moved me and my son to North Carolina. I wasn't around my family. I didn't know anybody, that kind of thing. So
how quickly from when you married, how soon did you move?
Oh gosh, 2 years after.
Okay. And you moved to North Carolina. And, and how long were you there before it fell apart?
It was already falling apart, but 2 years.
Okay. So, and then you went back to Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And so did you have to file in North Carolina or did you file in Florida?
I asked about that. I'm glad you asked that. North Carolina, I had to be a resident a little bit longer, and I didn't want to stay there any longer. But since I was already from Florida and I had been there for a while, after I separated from him, I had to have been living there for, I think, 6 months to a year. So I stayed there.
Okay, in Florida. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I know states have some different laws, like in New York. New York is very difficult because you have to be legally separated for 1 year in New York, right? And then you can file for your divorce after that. Whereas like in Nevada, where I was married and divorced, I could I could go in, talk to an attorney. 2 weeks later, he had the papers drawn up, and a week or two after that, everything was filed and done.
Wow.
Yeah.
What goes on in Vegas stays in Vegas.
That's right. That's right. So it's so interesting to hear how different states handle it, because it is a process. And by moving around, it can definitely complicate things depending on where you move to.
True. I didn't realize that either.
Yeah. Something to research, everyone, before you get married. Plan your escape route.
Should things not pan out, do know your options.
That's right. You know the laws. Know the laws state by state. Pin them on a map somewhere. Be like, these are my safe places. But it does make a difference. And so so the fact that you moved back to Florida, probably you had a good support system there too.
Yes.
For you.
My mom, my brothers were still there. Yeah.
And so to go back there, you were already resident, so you had to just be there 6 months or so, and then you could file. How long was it after you did that? How long did it take?
It took, I think, 4 months, and it only took the extra 2 months because he did not respond the way he was supposed to respond, and he kept stalling.
That makes it hard. And so when that was happening, were you at a place where you felt like you were done, you were ready, or were you did you ever have second thoughts?
No.
Yeah.
Never had second thoughts, because I was at a point where I know if I had gone back, there would have probably been some physical stuff going on, or he would have tried to follow through on his threats.
Wow.
And I was not willing to do that. Not at all.
No. And that's scary. Good thing you had such a good family to go back to and had a safe place, because that can be very almost debilitating when you're living in fear like that.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, it was. I mean, in so many ways, it was just time. I mean, because little by little, the more he did, the more I was like, oh, okay, well, that's my husband. I just have to be the good wife. Oh, that's my husband. I just have to be the good wife. And then it got to the point where I was like, okay, when does it stop? When does the pain and the hurt and the anguish and the demoralizing and all that, so when does that stop? You know, and talking to him about it did nothing. I even let him know, I said, I want to let you know that this hurts. What you're doing hurts. And I didn't know if you're aware, but I'm letting you know. So now that you're aware, we can change it, you know, and find out what we can do to make it better. The very next day, he threatened me again. So I was like, okay.
You sound like, listening to you sound so strong, and you sound like, you know, you're a woman who knows exactly what she wants and what you deserve and how you want and deserve to be treated. Were you, is it because of time, or were you that same way then?
I think it was very suppressed. It was very suppressed then. And I don't think I'm definitely not the same person I was then. You know, I'm not bitter. I'm not angry. You know, I'm just thankful. I learned from that experience a great deal that I wouldn't have known otherwise. Back
then, I mean, that makes total sense. But thinking back then, when you're in that situation and you're making every effort, I get it. I mean, you're making every single effort to make things right and to try and be open and communicate your feelings and your side of it, and then to be shut down and have someone not change their behavior, right?
Yeah.
Did you have anybody there that you could talk to, or that was helping you through this while you were there? You know, or did you have a friend who came to you and was like, hey, this is not right. Look at what's happening to you.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine who came to, she lived 2 doors down, and he didn't really want me talking to her.
Yeah.
But she had a very good marriage. You know, they had 5 children. She's a great shoulder, you know, to cry on and ear to hear. So she just talked to me, and she says, listen, if ever you need me, just let me know. just let me know if you need to come and stay the night. If you need anything, just let me know, because you may not say it, but I can see that things aren't right.
Yeah. And how did it feel to have somebody say that to you, even though you weren't necessarily confiding in her?
Yeah. I was happy that she offered, and I was thankful that at least I knew I had somebody there, because where we lived in North Carolina, I didn't really know a whole lot of people. I knew her and her family because they lived 2 doors down.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew one lady from the church, and she lived like down the street and around the corner. I could walk to her house, but she was having problems of her own.
Right. So you were kind of on your own, essentially. It didn't sound, did you open up to anybody or eventually? No.
I talked to my mom, but I didn't tell her what was going on.
Right. Like you talk to her, but not tell her everything.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I've done that too. Yeah. And it's like, I wish you could read my mind because I'm not going to say it out loud.
Look at my face and tell me what I'm thinking.
Right? Yeah. It's so hard. And to hear you now, to hear the strength in your voice and to hear you laughing and everything is huge. Because I get it, my marriages weren't quite like that, but I've had a relationship where I can understand, being there and trying really hard to work things out and having to eventually leave because you're just, it's beating you down after a period of time. And that's heartbreaking. And that really can break somebody.
I can't even lie. Immediately after I separated, I left him in 2009 and we got divorced in 2010. Mm-hmm. But I left him and went back to Florida, and I was just a mess. I was like, what did I do wrong? I don't understand how I wasn't a good wife. How wasn't I good enough? And that kind of thing. Because I found that he was cheating too. And that was just like, wow, all this time you've been blaming me for cheating on you or thinking that I was cheating on you, and I never did.
Were you sitting there feeling crazy, like you were doing everything wrong and everything was your fault?
I was back and forth to the hospital. I had health issues anyway.
Yeah.
But I was back and forth to the hospital, in the emergency rooms and stuff. And I was over 200 pounds and in a wheelchair at one point.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I'm 130 now.
Wow.
I've been down. That's my normal body weight.
So, wow. So this really affected you beyond emotionally. I mean, this affected your physicality, everything, your health.
It was a relationship that was incredibly volatile. And I was unaware because I hadn't been married before. I hadn't been like a relationship like that before. So I was trying to fix it. And a light bulb came on one day and I was like, I can't fix another person.
Yeah. And so now, when you left and you went back to Florida to be with your mom, could she see it in you?
She could.
And when you got back to Florida, what did you do to rebuild yourself and to heal those wounds? Because you must have been extremely broken at that point.
I was.
I mean, that's devastating. And I've heard people say sometimes physical abuse is much easier to heal from than emotional abuse.
I don't know. He, in every way but physically, it was abuse. That's right. All the way around.
And that's so horrible. And so what did you do when you got back to Florida? What were your steps that you took?
I don't even know. I think I was kind of more in a blur and in a fog than anything else for a while.
Yeah.
But I just started, I was writing in a notebook and just like asking myself questions, asking God questions and why and what do I need to do? And, I wanted to just stop being angry and hurt. That was the main thing,
right.
And I wanted to make sure my son was okay. Main thing, So I guess we helped each other and my family helped us too.
Yeah. So you did a lot of writing and everything. And then what happened with, for instance, you said your weight, you had gained so much weight that you were in a wheelchair at one point, right? And now you're down and now you're down to 130, which is a huge difference. What did you do? What motivated you? What got you out?
I decided, because I was in pain anyway, like every day, I said, I may as well just walk. I know it's going to hurt, but I love to walk. And I just started taking steps as much as I could until it didn't hurt anymore. If it hurt too bad, I'd stop. Mm-hmm. But then the next day I get out and do it again. I just put on headphones and listen to music and get out and do it again. And I slowly got to walking further and walking faster. And it still hurt, but just not as bad. Yeah. So
And you didn't
No.
do it. And you didn't do it right away when you got back to Florida, did you? I mean, did it take you a few months for you to make a decision like, I'm going to make these changes and I'm going to turn things around? Yeah.
Because I just didn't want to feel the way I had been feeling.
Right.
And I needed a positive kind of outlet. And I was like, okay, all right, I need to clear my head. So I just go for a walk. And I liked doing that. It was more refreshing to do that and listen to music. And if I cried, I cried. But I was like, okay, I'm still doing this. I'm still, and the next thing I knew, I'm looking at the scale and I'm like, oh, this works. Cool. I'll just keep
doing it. That's awesome. And so how long did you stay in Florida? I mean, what was your healing time like? How long did it take you?
I can't even tell you. I don't know. Because he kept trying to contact me. I started actually, I started walking and stuff like that before I left him,
Mm-hmm.
but I just continued on afterward. He kept trying to contact me through email, trying to send me stuff to my brother's house and my son was just getting so furious. So he's like, would you I don't know what, I want to tell him. I was like, tell you what, whatever you want to tell him, email it to him. He says, I don't want him contacting you this. I said, yeah, just send him a long email. Say everything it is that you need to say to get it off your chest, however you need to say it, and be done with it. Because I don't want you feeling angry too. I don't want you holding on to that pain and that anguish too. Because my son felt like he just took years of his life for no reason.
Wow. And so when you moved, or actually before you moved, how was your communications with your son?
We talked, but it was not the same. My son didn't know what was going on behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't understand why I was still with this guy, because he didn't like my son. Yeah, my son and I were very close because it was just me and him. So he accused me of the most heinous thing.
Your son did?
No.
Oh.
My husband accused me of being with my son sexually.
Oh my God.
And he had 3 sons, and all this other stuff. And I mean, on top of many other things he accused me of and all this other stuff. And one day I was like, hey, listen, you know what? Did your mom do something like that to you? Or anybody do something like that to you for you to say that to me?
Right.
And he's like, well, no. I said, dude, check this out. You need help. There's nothing I can. That's right. Right then, that was the time I realized I'm like, I can't help him. I don't know what's going on in his brain. That is hard. And I said, in saying that, you're accusing me of being an adulterous, incestuous pedophile. You realize that, right? And I'm who you married. And this is okay with you? Like, well, no, I wasn't saying that. I'm like, well, that's what it is. And that's not something I'll stand for. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because when I did laundry, he found a pair of my son's underwear and my underwear on the floor. And he thought, well, he's like, what's this? I'm like, underwear? He's like,
I was doing
knew
laundry.
You'd say that. Whatever, I can't.
Wow. So your son didn't know these things were going on. And then once you left, then things changed with communications with your son, I'm sure.
Yes. Because whenever he'd want to tell me something, whenever my son would want to come and tell me something that was going on or whatever, my ex-husband would be like, you're just a tattletale. You just go run to your mom, and this kind of thing. And my son was a teenager at the time. And so he's like, really? He's like, you don't need to tell your mom. You don't need to go bothering her. So we opened our lines of communication, my son and I, a lot more afterward. And we just kind of, I felt this way. I was hurt. Mom, I thought you did this. And he told me flat out one day, which really hurt. It was a couple of years ago, because he was just having issues, mentally with everything, like 3 years ago, something like that. He said, Mom, you keep wanting me to talk. I'm just going to get it out. And I'm sorry if it hurts. I was like, just talk to me. He said, I lost respect for you. And I'm gaining it back. But I didn't respect you because you just let him treat you like that. You let him treat me like that. I was like, well, there's a lot of stuff you don't know. And every time we'd fight, he and I would fight, and it wasn't like a fight. It was just like he'd put me down and treat me like garbage because I was standing up for my son. He wanted to treat my son like he was treating me, and I would not have it.
Wow. So a couple of questions on that. For your son to say that and you to sit and listen to it is huge on your part, because that's got to be hard to take. to hear.
It hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure it wasn't easy for your son to say all that. It probably broke his heart too.
Yeah.
But how helpful, right?
Yes.
To have that conversation. How awesome is it that you have that kind of a relationship with your son now, that you can be completely open and honest with one another?
Yes, we had that before I got married.
Yeah. But to have that back after such thing.
Yeah.
But one of the things, when he said that, and, you know, I'm hearing the story and a lot of it resonates in some ways, you know, and this is a totally separate relationship for me, not outside of my marriages, but, you know, in a somewhat similar type of situation where I felt so broken after being in a relationship with somebody, I felt like I had lost respect for myself.
Oh, yeah.
Did you? Yeah. Because I think that's what hurt the most is somehow I felt like I had lost myself, and I didn't know how to regain that person back. Because you know, as I'd sit back and look at the end of the day, it's like, how could I let this happen to me? How could I not stand up for myself? And why am I still here? Right. That's the part that was so mind blowing for me. And I don't know, how did you feel about that when you were going through that?
It was a hard thing for me because I felt like I was I put myself in another position I never should have been in.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was in the Marines. I was stronger than this. I could do this. And I let it happen. And I just really got to stop letting this happen, you know, because I never expected anything to that degree or at all like that to happen.
Yeah.
You know?
I totally get it. And number one, you were in the Marines?
Yes.
Holy cow. Well, thank you so much for your service. I had no idea. That's fantastic.
Many years before I met him. Yeah.
But still, that's tremendous. And it's so interesting because it's like, how could we be so strong most of our lives and do so many cool things and brave things and whatever, right? And then to suddenly find ourselves in a position we would never expect to be in, because like you watch movies or you see other people and it's like, why are they with him? Like, why would you do that? Like, what could possibly possess you to put up with, tolerate that kind of behavior? And the thing is it doesn't just happen like they go, you know, it happens gradually so that you almost don't even notice.
Right.
And it's almost like this, it goes from like, and then you start like doubting yourself. Well, maybe it's me, because like they're not doing anything like I can exactly pinpoint and be like, that's a thing, because it's done in such a way that it's not black and white crazy, right? But you start to feel crazy after a while because you're like, I don't feel good about myself, but I can't exactly pinpoint what's happening here. But yet all of the sudden you get out of that gray and it goes to black. And that's when it's like, holy crap, how did I end up here? Like I am a mess. I am a complete mess. I have no control over my life at this point. And I'm completely broken and I don't know what to do. Yep. But it's weird because I could 10 years ago, I'd be like, that wouldn't happen to me. Like, I'm better than that. And I have friends that were like, what's wrong with you? Get out. And it's like, it's not that simple when you're that person in it.
Right.
And it's just, and because we've never thought we would be that person. And then I've had friends be like, what are you doing? Like, it's so easy. Just be done. You're better than, like, who are you? Like, what happened to you? Why are you and you feel like they've lost respect for you and for yourself.
Thank you for saying that. His friends, I didn't even realize, like I said, this happens so gradually you don't realize it. And I didn't realize it. But when my friends knew me pre-marriage, they're like, you're so silly, you're so funny, you're so outgoing, and I was like, yeah, I'm just silly, blah, blah, blah. And during the marriage, when we went to go visit them, before we went to North Carolina to visit my friend, because she was throwing a party for her husband at the time. She's like, she invited us over and she's like, where are you? what's going on? Are you okay? I was like, oh, I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
And me and myself, now that I thought about it, you brought it up, I was like, why did I put up with that?
Yeah.
That's like the little things that I thought was, oh, he's just being cute.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it doesn't mean anything for him to say that or be like this. He's just possessive because he loves me. It was, it was not. We would go out, and here's one of those gray areas, one of those little things that you don't know how to define.
Mm-hmm.
We'd go out places, to the mall or something, but we never like sat down and had a romantic dinner. Moving on, we would go to the mall or whatever, and I'd like, honest example, I saw this guy's sweater. It was a nice sweater, and I just looked over and I was like, "That's a nice sweater." He's like, "What? You want to F him?" I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Why are you looking at him? Why are you staring at him?" I'm like, "I'm not okay." And it got to a point with that where I couldn't even say like somebody's hair looked nice or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I just look at the ground. Whenever we'd be out walking, I'd just look down at the ground. And I just thought that was a normal thing.
It's weird. We adjust our behavior to accommodate somebody else without thinking, well, that makes it easier, and ignoring the fact that there's something wrong with them.
Right. Wearing a shirt. I had a little bit of toothpaste on it. And he's like, you're such an embarrassment, this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, what? He's like, well, look at that. Your clothes are all dirty. And, I'm like, okay. I was like, okay, I'm sorry.
And that's just it. It's little, those things sound like little things. So like if you were to tell a friend, like in my eyes, my situation, like if I were to tell a friend, well, he said this, well, it sounds like a small thing. Like, so what? It's one thing, or, but then it happens every day, or it happens a lot, and then it becomes a bigger thing. But to say it out loud, in my mind, to say it out loud, it sounds just like I'm being whiny. Mm-hmm. Right? Because if you were to go tell someone like, I'm so hurt and I'm so broken, it's like, what do you say? Well, you're a mess because you have toothpaste on your shirt. That would sound ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's like, well, how could I tell somebody that? It just sounds stupid. But but when you start looking at the everyday and piecing it together and seeing the bigger picture of it, it's a completely different story. And that's what people don't get. And
right.
It's weird. It's a very weird place to be in. So I'm so glad that to hear you strong, like the strength in your voice again, like I was saying before, because that's a hard place to come back from. That's really hard to build confidence. And the other thing that you pointed out is you hadn't been in a relationship for a long time before that. And then you're not dating now.
Not.
So this has had a huge effect on you.
Yeah. It has. But see, before I dated him, before I started dating him, and like I said, I hadn't been with anybody in 10 years, I had been with my son's dad. And I was like, well, I'm not sure. I can't be with anybody else because he hurt me really bad, blah, 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 blah. And I never addressed that. I never went over my feelings for that and tried to figure out what was going on with me, so that I got in this other relationship. And even though it was 10 years later, it was almost like the same, because I never looked inside myself to better myself as far as that goes,
Is that the case? Because the reason I ask is because I've been divorced since 99. I'd been married twice. I spent all of this time on my own, and I dated and stuff. And then when I got into this serious relationship, that I was kind of similar in your case in some ways, it had been a long time that I had been in a relationship like that. Even though I had dated and I thought, oh, I have things worked out. I've kind of walked through them, and I know in my mind kind of my lessons learned. And then this happens, and I'm like, I have learned nothing. And it's like, what the heck happened? And it's since then I've taken a lot of time and effort and put into more self-reflection and really, what have I learned, and really focused on that. And I can see that now in my relationships now, with my boyfriend now, and outside of that, just in the world in general, it's made a difference. Mm-hmm. But at what point, like, you're not dating now, how do you plan, or do you have a plan of how you're going to work it out for future relationships? Is there a future relationship for you?
Well, I'm so glad you asked. I know that I'm glad you heard of my voice, that I am a lot stronger, a lot healthier, which is the main thing, mentally and spiritually, really. I had to stop going to church because it's one of the weapons he used against me or whatever. But I do believe in God, and I am a stronger spiritual person than anything else. I do see dating in my future because I have my eye on this guy, and I don't know what happens. But in the meantime, like this time, I have just been like taking better care of myself, especially mentally, because that was really difficult to deal with on a logical level. And I'm a very logical person. So I said, okay, people are people. Like I said, I could not change him. If I want things to change, I have to change myself as far as reading the signs. And when there is a sign, really pay attention. There's no reason to dismiss it if it's caught my radar. You know what I mean? So learning to be like that around myself, like, why am I angry about this? Or why am I sad about this? Or really identifying with my emotions and how I feel, and me getting to know what I like, how I would feel about it, and it's helped so much in that I love myself beyond reason. It's just ridiculous. Not being like, I'm so conceited, but no, I really learned how to love myself and appreciate who I am.
How did you do that though? Through your spirituality, or?
I guess a little bit of everything, really. Because once I got out of the wheelchair, I think, and once I decided, okay, I'm going to take these steps. It is almost like life steps. But I was like, I'm going to take these steps, and if it hurts, I'm just going to keep going. And I kept going, and I kept going. And I'm no longer in a wheelchair. I'm no longer in that relationship, and I'm just taking the baby steps in life. Whatever makes me happy, whatever makes my soul shine, I'm doing that.
Nice. Yeah. And I think it's just like every day doing a little something to reinforce that. Yeah.
And comedy helps.
Yes, it does. Which I'm glad you brought that back up, because, you say you're not quite ready to laugh about any of this, right? Have you attempted to write any stand-up about it?
Not recently. But I do see where I can go with it, because there are a lot of hilarious elements. I got to be honest. Even though it's like, oh, wow, that was terrible. I could tell that entire terrible, whole terrible story, and then at the end say something completely hilarious, because, that's so dark and so deep. Making light of it would be helpful as well, I think. Yeah.
So you may not tell it as a joke, but when you find that people bring up, or that you have to bring up, that you've been married before, do you find it hard to talk about in general? I mean, you're fine with me right now, but we knew we were going to be talking about this.
Yeah. No, actually, I don't find it hard to talk about. I used to, and I did. I congratulate myself for not doing it while we're on show. But the only thing I've said that I think, and this is to sum it up, I was like, well, I was married to Satan, and if you believe in God at all, it's never a good match. It never works out.
That's so funny.
I said to myself, like, no, I got to stop calling him Satan. His mother did give him a name.
Right? My hardest thing is when I was going through it, it was talking about it to people, or when they asked what happened. I hated that question. What happened?
Initially, yeah, I did not. Because the funny thing was, the people that met him, they're like, yeah, I'm so glad you're not in that relationship anymore. It wasn't like, hey, wow, you okay? But his friends, like, they'd call or whatever, and, oh, it's just wrong for you to be, away from his wrong. You shouldn't get a divorce because God doesn't like divorce, and, you should give him another chance, and you should really. I'm like, you guys just don't know. You have no idea.
That's got to be hard to hear.
Because around his friends and coworkers, he was the great guy,
Wow. And so, do you talk to him anymore?
Nope.
No, that's probably for the better.
Yeah.
That's probably for the better.
I do wish him well, and I forgive him. I forgive myself, and that was a huge thing, too. I had to dig deep and go, okay, I still have these feelings, blah, blah, blah. I need to forgive myself, because I felt like I allowed myself to be put in that, and I did this to myself. And I was like, okay, if that's the fact, yes, I did. And I forgive myself for that.
Yeah.
From that, and I won't do it again.
That's awesome that you can, because a lot of people might beat themselves up over that, or continue to do so, or I always promised I didn't want to be the bitter woman with 9 cats.
Wait, I see no cats. I think you're doing good.
No cats. Not even a kitten. I have none. I don't know. So I did have a fish, but no cats. And yeah, it's interesting. So when you were, would you ever get married again?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you
Yes.
didn't even hesitate.
Nope.
Nope. And that's
I would
interesting
absolutely-
because you haven't been dating, but you would definitely get married again.
Yeah.
That's
Because
awesome.
I know love more in myself now, and I know how to give and receive love more now than I ever have. And I'm looking forward to that because I know that the man that's out there, especially the man that I got my eye on, moving on, I know that there are good men who love themselves and have that love to give to other people. But if you don't love yourself first, it's going to be really hard to give something you don't have,
Mm-hmm.
And
True.
when I was in the marriage with him, I did ask him, like toward the end, right after we went to counseling or something, I says, now I know full well, because you're so good at doing what you did, that I was not the first woman that you treated like this. I said, what about your ex-wife? And he's like, well, yeah, I treated her like that too. I was like, and the woman before her? He's like, well, yeah, we went through 5 women before he said, okay, and I didn't do that to her.
Really?
Yeah.
And how
So
many
I
times had he been married? Once before you?
Once before me, and he's married now. I found out through his kids. His kids still would keep in contact with me. They're great.
Oh, wow. That should make you feel good.
I love them. They were children. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I love them just like I love my son. It wasn't any different, other than, he's my son, and I took care of all of them.
Right.
But it was just a weird dynamic for him to want to put them above my son. And it's like, no, they're all children. Why would you do that to them?
Right. Wow. Well, that's a nice compliment that they still keep in touch. That says a lot for you and everything, and that you and your son have such a good relationship. So if you were to tell our listeners or give them like one best thing that can come out of divorce, what would you say it is?
Oh, let's see. Huh. Really falling in love with yourself. If you've lost the art of knowing who you are, getting caught up in what has transpired throughout your marriage, and you've lost focus on yourself and you've lost yourself, it's a gift, that divorce, being able to get yourself back and be stronger than you were before, and love harder than you have before, giving yourself the opportunity to do that rather than staying somewhere stagnant or somewhere that's even less than stagnant.
That's awesome. That's a really good, it's true. It's like starting a new chapter of life.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. And if there was one thing that you would say for them to have during their divorce that would help them, is there anything, like one thing that helped you?
Support. Absolutely. Friends and family, that is a huge thing. It really is.
Yeah, that is so true.
And laughter, dude. Like,
Right.
because you get so hurt and so angry. Go maybe treat yourself one time a month, and then start then from there go to once a week, doing something nice for yourself. Take yourself out on a date. Take yourself to the beach, and laugh.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because I hear so many women say, oh, I'm not going to buy this new dress or buy this new thing. I don't have anything to wear. And I've been guilty of that too. And it's like, why don't we take ourselves somewhere where we have a special occasion? Don't you wonder why we wait for someone else to plan those things? Do you notice we do that by saying, well, I don't have anything to, it's interesting. And I think that's a great idea, to get out there and to treat yourself. Take yourself out on a date. Show yourself how you want to be treated on a date.
Thank you. Yes. I was telling a friend of mine, I was like, I just learned to be my own best friend. And I would like, if I was in this situation or I was feeling this way, how would I want my best friend to talk to me? How would I want my best friend to treat me? I'm that person for me.
Yes.
So
that is great advice. That's fantastic. And I can tell that you've actually applied that. I can hear it, and just hearing your story, and obviously it works. And so, I mean, You answered the phone happy tonight. Like everything. I'm like, oh my gosh, this woman is doing well, which is so cool.
Okay, keep going.
It's really cool. And I'm so glad that you shared all of this with me, and I really appreciate it. And I think, if there's someone out there listening, there's always someone who's going to be like, wow, that really resonated,
I'm glad, and anybody that's going through, I love you. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter where you're at in your life. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter how you feel about yourself right now. Just know that you're loved.
Yeah, absolutely. Because they are. They are. And we're here. We get it. We've been there. We totally understand what it's like. And it gets better. It really gets better.
It does get better. I can't tell you it gets better, but it does get better.
Even for your son, right?
Oh gosh, yeah. He's a surf instructor now. He's, doing his own thing, and I'm so happy for him.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Well, I will definitely keep in touch, and thanks again for being on the podcast and sharing your story and being so inspiring. This is really cool.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate you.
Absolutely.
It was great talking to you. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.